Hi, I'm Alex Benestelli, Music Director at St. James by the Sea Episcopal Church in La Jolla, where we're building a fantastic new organ by the Rosales and Parsons Organ Companies. In this week's conversation, I'm going to have a chance to talk to the Rev'd Dr. Hargreaves, our Rector here at St. James. We're going to talk about what this organ means to the parish and everything we have to look forward to as construction continues. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and as always, we appreciate your support, your generosity in supporting this campaign. You can donate by clicking on the yellow Donate Now button in the upper right-hand corner of our website, www.stjamesorgan.com. Father Mark, thanks for joining me today. And I want to start with a very important question that I know that's on the minds of many parishioners, and that is, do you think I'm crazy?
Well, probably, but not for reasons that we're about to discuss in this conversation.
I see. Well, the organ is an important thing, obviously, to me as a musician, and why is it an important thing to you as the rector to be building this amazing new organ?
Well, it's important for several reasons. The main reason is that it's at the heart of our worship. So the organ will be leading, for I hope, well over a century, the worship of the people of St. James. And worship is the most important thing we do as a community. And at St. James, as you know, that worship is in a very strong musical tradition. So that's something that's very important to us and part of our identity. And it's important to me as rector to recognise the strong points that we have as a community and to make sure that we build on and develop those. So I'm hoping that the organ won't just maintain our musical tradition, but allow it to develop over the generations to come. And then finally, I think the organ will play an important part in the wider life of the parish and the community. So it's not just on Sundays. I'm very aware of where we are, where we're located. We're right downtown La Jolla. La Jolla is a very is a place where music is important. We've got the new Conrad Centre 2 blocks away. We've got a $100 million project happening next door at the Museum of Contemporary Art. Yeah. And I think this part of La Jolla is going to grow into being what it's always been intended to be, which is a cultural zone. And I think the new organ will allow us to step boldly into that future as a place where real quality music can be heard, and I just think that's very exciting. So I think it'll help our own worshipping community and also help us to make inroads into the wider community.
Yeah,
and make links there.
Thank you for saying so. I obviously share that view, and one of the reasons I'm so pleased to be here at St. James is because we share this vision of being part of the wider community. And for those watching, we are sitting here in the rector's office today, and we're looking out the window at the construction on the museum, of course the Historical Society over here, and then just over our shoulders here a few blocks is the new Conrad Performing Arts Center. So I feel that we're well positioned right in the center of that. I just think about our wonderful space, the wonderful grounds that we have and across the street, and how we might be opening our doors to people that will be coming here to experience music and experience church and faith and all those important things. So, I know you said that the organ plays an important role in the worship life of the congregation. Might you say something more about that? Is that, what is it about worship that, I know we hear the organ in worship, but how is it that experience translates into a religious experience?
Well, I think music moves us. It speaks into our soul, and there's something special too about singing. Wasn't it St. Augustine says that whoever sings prays twice? I think having an organ just to lift our singing and to hold the singing together, being led by a choir, is something that I think takes us to another place. And there is nothing, I think, like having one's voice lifted up to God in praise, lost in the sound of a congregation led by a great organ. That, to me, is well, not just to me, that's a very significant part of the Episcopalian tradition.
Yeah, well, it's certainly what drew me to the Episcopalian tradition, and I remember as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old in Pittsburgh, where it was very cold in the winters, they gave me a keys to the church, and I'd ride my bicycle down and play hymns, and when no one else was around. And at that point, I'd play them as loud as I could, and that's really just what captured my imagination and led me to this. But what you said reminds me of something that Tom Sheehan talked about last week, which is the character of our new organ is such that it is meant to be broad and supportive and warm, and really something that enhances congregational singing and worship and those things. And it's not meant to be particular in its approach. It's meant to be all-encompassing in the way that we support people singing. So thank you for that. I wonder, I know that this is a big project. Have you done an organ project before?
I have. In fact, in answering that question, it's made me wonder if I'm cursed as a rector, because I've been a rector twice, and in both churches, soon after I've arrived, the organ has died. So I hope it's nothing to do with me. At least at St James it didn't die in quite such spectacular fashion as my organ in London, where I'll never forget, I hadn't been there very long, and it was a wedding. And the organ had been playing up for some time, and we'd noticed that rather like a computer, if you turned it on and off, sometimes it would come back to life. So I sent Robin the verger down to turn the organ on, because in the warm-up it had died. And a few moments later, Robin reappeared from the basement, ashen-faced, and I noticed without eyebrows. And what had happened is he turned on the switch, and it had exploded, and his head had been engulfed in flames. I mean, thankfully, it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. So this was just before the wedding was meant to start. So I had to go to the back of the church, because the bride had arrived by now. And I had to calm her down and tell her, look, I'm terribly sorry that the organ's just packed up. There's no way we're going to have an organ for this wedding. But we've got a piano, so we'll just carry on. And she was very good about it.
That's surprising.
Yeah, no, she was good. Because I did know her quite well. I couldn't do much about Robin's eyebrows, but we were all ready to go. And I got back to the front of the church, and the organist was packing up. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm an organist. I was employed to play the organ. And the organ's not working, so I'm going home. So I looked at him and I said, look, sunshine, if you can play an organ, you can play that piano over there. And it's the only time I've ever had to frog march a musician to a stall. And he was very, very grumpy about it. And we never employed him ever again. But anyway, so at least at St James we had a warning. We knew the organ. Steve told me the organ was on its last legs when I arrived. In London, the big difference in the projects is that the organ we had in London was a magnificent 1905 Walker organ, which I know some people viewing will know that Walker was one of the premier organ builders in the UK, and the early 20th century was the absolute apogee of its quality.
The organ fans among the people following our organ website in progress will know about Walker organs in the early 20th century.
So it was the Rolls Royce of organs, and mercifully it had been neglected for decades. So it hadn't been altered or damaged, or it was ripe for renovation. It hadn't been spoilt in any way. So we got a very good organ, a very, very small company. I think they were a pair of brothers. I think they were called Fernley or something. But they were very, very wonderful. And it took them well over a year. And they refurbished the organ, because that was an absolutely wonderful classic organ. And
so they retained a lot of the character.
Oh yeah, the whole thing. They just restored it and brought it back to life. And we had a great concert with Thomas Trotter came and played at the opening concert. So that was great. Whereas it's different here, because the project here is not one of restoration, simply because the organ that was here before, the Austin organ, wasn't nearly of the same quality as the Walker organ. And when we looked at the quotes comparing what it cost to repair versus rebuilding a new organ, I mean, that was not a difficult decision to make, given that the costs were almost the same. It made sense to go for a rebuild here. So I've had two projects, but they've both been very different.
Well, it's interesting. I think I remember you telling me that the project of your last parish was around £2 million or something.
No, it's less than that.
But with we'll say with the exchange rate, it's really not, and the time difference, it's not that dissimilar of a figure to what we're embarking on. So very different projects, but somewhat similar. I know that one of the things that you have impressed upon me, and from very early on in this process, is the need to involve others, particularly in the parish, in the community, in the vestry. You appointed an organ advisory committee that's been extremely helpful. Will you say something about how important it is for people to be involved in the church?
Well, it's essential mainly because this is a huge project. I mean, it's right at the centre of church life. It's something that everybody sees and has an opinion on, and it's extremely costly, as we know only too well. And it's not something that can be rushed or done without people, or sprung on people. And actually, one thing I have learned over the years is a project of this scale has to have a very broad base of support. And you did a great job with the vestry, and there was overwhelming support from the vestry for the project. They asked all the questions that they did their job. They asked the questions of you and the committee that the congregation would have, and they didn't go into it in any way abrogating their responsibility. They took it very seriously. They asked difficult questions, and they raised the question of why would we spend so much money on an instrument? And they talked that we had very good and sensible, reasoned conversations with a variety of opinions expressed. And I think in the end, what helped them get on board in such an overwhelming manner was their confidence in the process. It wasn't rushed. Because we knew the organ was dying, we actually started the process before its demise. And I think you and your committee gave people confidence in the process and the decision making. People felt they had a say, and that was important. And then I think when it was well thought out and discussed in the vestry, we opened up the conversation to the congregation. I remember some very good congregational meetings that were very well attended.
Yes.
And again, a variety of views was expressed, which is what you want. And I'm pleased to say at the moment we've had over about 150 people from the parish contribute financially, and if it hadn't been for the pandemic, there'd have been a lot more. But that shows a groundswell of support, which I think is very good and very important.
One thing that's really stood out to me is how joyful the support has been from members of the parish. That those, whether they're giving a small amount or a large amount, that the spirit of giving and the spirit of participation in this project has been really characterized to me by joy.
Yeah, this has not been a slog.
No.
Which, as you often remind me, shows, I think, always evidence of the spirit being in it. It's the right project at the right time, being done in the right way. And I think that's meant that people have found it very easily to get on board and join in enthusiastically and joyfully.
Yeah, I think there are certainly times where we're 3 years into this process, and I think, oh goodness, what have we gotten ourselves into? But I think at the end of the day, I have such confidence that the Spirit is in it, and that we're doing something that we're called to do, and it's going to be just extraordinary in the end. That it's worth the time, it's worth the effort, and as you said, it's worth doing the process right and including everybody. But it leads me to my final question, which is, what are you looking forward to most about having a new organ?
Well, lots of reasons, but I'll pick out one. The thing I'm looking forward to most is the installation, or the day we can celebrate and hear it, because of the times we're in. Here we are in October. We don't know whether we'll have Christmas services in church this year.
That's right.
I don't think our Easter services in 2021 are going to be anything like they normally are. We just don't know what the future holds. So actually it's a very good time that our organ is out and being built. And I think that as I look forward over the next couple of years, I'm pretty confident by Easter 2022, life will be returning to normal. And I'm confident that's a date where I feel confident to say we could be back in church, looking forward, anticipating hearing our magnificent world-class organ being played at the great Easter services. So there's a date in my head when the organ comes back, when I just think that's something we can get behind and look forward to on the horizon as a great day of celebration and return to our lovely sanctuary.
I think so too. I think that first trumpet of Jesus Christ has risen today at Easter time will be just the most wonderful experience for all of us. And I will say, just in closing, that one of my things that I'm looking forward to is the installation process when the truck pulls up. And everybody in the parish gets to come and help carry the pipes into the building and have this sense of pride and ownership over, what we've accomplished together. So I think that one will follow the other, and it's surely, with all the other things going on at the museum and around our community, will be a great time of celebration in the future. But just as we close, I want to thank you for all the support you've given to me, to the organ committee, and to this project. As Manuel Rosales will tell you, that without the rector's support, the project is nothing. So, and I know one of the reasons that he's been so excited to be a part of this is because of your support and your love for all that's going on. So thank you.
Thank you.